So, Minute Officer, can you please commence the live streaming? Can I just confirm that it is live? It is. So, good evening, everyone. I would like to declare the council meeting on the 26th of August 2025 opened at 5:35, and I would like to advise that the meeting is being live streamed in accordance with the council meeting's live streaming, recording and electronic attendance policy. By being present in this meeting, members of the public consent to the City live streaming and recording the subsequent publishing their voices on the City's website. I would like to advise that should you experience any technical difficulties, I will call for a 2-minute adjournment, and after this time the meeting will recommence. I first wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we are on, the Mandurah people, who have met for thousands of years on the shores of these beautiful waterways as we do today. This is Mandurah, meeting place of the heart. Apologies. We have apologies tonight from Councillor Smith and Councillor Wilkins. And the important note on tonight's meeting is members of the public are advised that any decisions made at the meeting tonight can be revoked in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decision until formal notification in writing by council has been received. And answers taken to questions on notice. There are no answers. Amendment to standing orders. Council was requested to resolve to suspend the operation of the following provisions of the City of Mandurah Standing Orders Local Law 2016 for the duration of this meeting to ensure that Councillor Wright can follow and participate in the meeting as it progresses. Standing Order 7.2, members to occupy own seats while presenting in the meeting room, relevant only for elected members attending the council chambers. Agree under Standing Order 8.11 and 12.2 that instead of requiring a show of hands, a vote will be conducted by exception, with the presiding member calling for those members against the motion. If no response is received, the motion will be declared carried and minuted accordingly. And reiterate that the requirements as per Standing Order 7.3 for members to advise the presiding member when leaving or entering the meeting room at any time. I will move that item, and can I please call for a seconder? Councillor Kearns. I'll put that to the vote and now call for those who are opposed to the motion. Is there anyone opposed? No, that is carried, and I'm just going to confirm that Councillor Wright can hear us. So, Councillor Wright?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. So we'll now move to our public question time. Please ensure that your questions relate to the ordinary business of the City, the function of the Council or the purpose of this meeting. Please note that this is an opportunity to ask questions only. No additional statements or arguments will be permitted. During public question time, members of the public are given the opportunity to ask a question of Council. Council will allocate 15 minutes for public question time, and once this time has been exhausted, I may move a motion to extend the public question time for a further 15 minutes. The City is committed to ensuring fair and equitable access to public question time, and in accordance with the Council policy, each member of the public who wishes to ask a question may ask up to 3 questions. And public question time must be conducted in accordance with the City of Mandurah Standing Orders. Questions must not reflect adversely on the integrity of the City of Mandurah, including an elected member, city officer or any other party. Members of the public who have submitted questions in advance of this meeting will be invited to ask their questions first. And following this, if time permits, I will invite others to ask questions. When called forward, please ask your question, begin by stating your name, and the City will make every attempt to provide an answer, and where this is not possible, your question will be taken on notice and a written response will be provided to you once the necessary research has been undertaken. And this response will also be included in the next Council agenda. So I will now open public question time at 5:38. And I would now like to invite, actually we have one submitted question, which has been submitted by Natalie Brettle. Is Natalie here this evening? Natalie, do you want to ask your question, or would you like me to read your question? Okay, so the question that Natalie has submitted, or there's 2 questions. I have submitted 2 formal grievances with the CEO since November 2024. Both have been referred and investigated by the Director of Business Services, Talia Jones. I have also raised questions in the May Ordinary Council meeting in regard to haulage trucks in Lakelands, where I met the Director of Built and Natural Environment, Matthew Hall, on site. I then received an email on the 10th of June from Talia Jones and CC'd CEO and Matthew Hall stating that she had all additional documentation, and after meeting with Matthew Hall the following week on our on-site meeting, a final report and documents would be released to me. It is now the 26th of August and I have yet to receive any information. The first question is, why is Council withholding this information? And I would direct that question to the Executive Manager of Government Services. The Director of Business Services. Beg your pardon.
Thank you, through the Chair. The City of Mandurah is not withholding the information from Ms Brettle. City officers have met with Ms Brettle regarding the complaint on a number of occasions to discuss the complaint. The complaint and the documentation is currently being finalised for release. In response to the second question.
And yes, the second question is, what date can I expect this information?
Thank you, through the Chair. By the end of this week, the complaint and documentation will be released to Ms Brettle.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Now I'd like to invite, are there any members of the public who would like to ask any further questions? So just the gentleman in the blue, if you'd like to step forward and state your name.
My name is Craig Welsh. I'm a transport owner. If the trucks are registered, if the trucks are registered and they're under their gross vehicle mass, why is there a complaint? Like, if the trucks are permitted and they pay registration to enter those roadways, and we don't answer to the council. We pay registrations to Department of Transport. So why is this a council issue?
And I will direct that through to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, if I could please get some further details offline, I'd be happy to follow up around the specific issues. But as a right, vehicles are generally permitted to use the city's roads. As a right, if the vehicles are linked to a development and there's restrictions related to the traffic route for that development, there may be reasons where we would dictate a particular route working with the developer. But the answer to the question depends on the specific circumstances. So happy to meet with you and discuss that further if you'd wish.
Can I respond?
So no, this is public question time, but what I'm going to do is ask a staff member to come and take your details, and we'll get the Director of Built and Natural Environment to contact you.
If it's a mass managed vehicle and that's a mass managed travel path, you have no jury.
So
you have no
So I'm just going to ask you
over this path.
if you could provide your
down.
Yes, thank you. If you could provide your information to the staff member, and the Director of Built and Natural Environment will meet with you to discuss the issue further. Thank you. And is there anyone else with a question? Is that Gary Buckland? Welcome to the table.
Yeah, my name's Gary Buckland. In recent events, we've had some pretty heavy rain. Unfortunately, I've been located in an area that's now known as a flood zone. Now, that's an insurance problem which can be solved, but the worry we've got is that Rockford Road right through to Ormsbury Terrace, a lot of your land and your blocks are lower than the height of the main road. Your drainage system in the main roads isn't coping with the volume of water. So now a lot of water is coming back into properties, going into people's driveways, going into houses and things like that. It's quite a major problem, and it's over a large area. I spoke to the water supply and the drainage people that do the sewerage. They're terribly worried because just opposite us there's the lake, which acts as a compensation basin. But now the water is getting to a level that it's actually going back inside their property, and we could, and it only could, I mean, it'll have to take a lot of rain, but you could have sewage mixing in with your stormwater.
So thank you.
So,
yeah, I'll let you ask your question, sorry.
Yeah, it's more of a statement. I know it's an issue where you've got drainage systems that were put in many, many years ago. You've only got 370mm diameter pipes that will take that water away, but you've increased the volume. You've allowed units to be built right through that area, And now you've
So-
got driveways, all that sort of thing feeding into a drainage system that can't cope.
So, Mr. Buckhorn, this is public question time, so just if you could just pose a question.
Well, the question is council aware of what's happening, and what time response can we? Because otherwise, we're going to have to go and buy a canoe.
So, thank you. I will direct that to the Director of Built and Natural Environment, if you could respond.
Through the Mayor, if I could take that question on notice to be able to investigate and provide a response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. And if you could provide your details, actually, we do have your details here. So, yes, thank you. Is there anyone else with a question for question time? No, there isn't. Okay, well, if that's the case, I will close question time at 5:45 and thank those people that have come in with their questions. We'll now move to public statements. Public statements shall not involve any language considered offensive, contain any statements reflecting adversely on the integrity of any elected member or officer, exceed 2 minutes. And I would now like to invite Samantha Creswell, who's going to do a public statement. Welcome, Samantha.
Good evening. My name's Samantha Creswell, and I'm here about some hazardous trees that I've forwarded a petition to the council to be tabled tonight by Councillor Pond, so thank you for that, around some specific trees in Wannanup on some specific roads. The trees are actually planted, they're the Casuarina riverina. They were planted prior to what has become the eventual subdivision of Port Bavard, and the original plan, the blocks were going to be something like Pleasant Grove. So the trees then would have been quite suitable, but the average block is now 600 square metres. The trees now, 25 to 30 years later, are too big and causing a variety of issues to property, both private and of public property, including lifting paving and aggregate driveways, damaging soak wells and garden beds, and damaging and making infrastructure unsafe, including the footpaths, filling stormwater drains with their debris, and now cracking the road surface. These streets are all main pathways for foot traffic, not only for people enjoying our community, but also on the pathway to Falcon Primary School. In that regard, they've caused quite a few personal safety issues for the public and for our students and parents, including kids riding on their scooters and bikes and tripping over. We've had quite a few older people find them as a trip hazard, including one man who broke his ankle. And the debris that they produce is 12 months of the year. So the trees actually don't have a cycle where they stop, and the glass come in all the time and strip them.
So, Samantha, just letting you know you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay. The tree produces a poison from its roots, so it's actually unable to grow anything underneath, which creates inequity between the residents being able to beautify their gardens and the residents who have removed all their trees aren't there, have not actually had the trees replaced. We're actually advocating that the trees get replaced with the actual street tree that's on the Wannanup plan, which is the peppermint gum. But we would just like our community and our streets to be a bit safer for people to enjoy them outside.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
thank
you
you.
for your public statement. I will now move to leave of absences. Are there any councillors who wish to submit a leave of absence request? There are none. Petitions, and we will move to Councillor Pond, who is going to present a petition.
I would like to present to Council a petition that contains signatures of 160 residents, all of which have been verified, who are requesting that Council consider removal of hazardous street trees in Wannanup. I would like to move that the petition be received and referred to relevant officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Pond and Councillor Shoemaker is moving. Is there anyone who opposes that? That is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to presentations. There are no presentations. So we'll move to deputations. And before inviting deputations, I would like to emphasise that the conduct of this meeting has to comply with the City's standing orders. So whilst elected members may welcome deputations and are happy to hear your submissions, we ask that you refrain from using any offensive language, make statements that are knowingly incorrect, misleading or reflect adversely on the integrity of any elected member. And we have Alinda Papalia, who's going to make a statement in regard to a deputation in regard to Report 12, Amendment to the Mandurah Bay North. Welcome.
Thank you. Dear Mayor and Councillors, I'm here to express my strong opposition to the proposed development of a new tavern in the residential area of Mandurah Bay, as outlined in the Mandurah Bay Seaside Structure Plan Amendment 2. As a long-time resident and community member who is also a part of the Mandurah Bay Community Association, I am deeply concerned about the potential impact this development would have on the character, safety and well-being of our neighbourhood. Mandurah Bay is a peaceful, family-oriented area, and introducing another large licensed venue so close to home and existing businesses poses serious risks. Our community is already well serviced by 2 taverns in a 2-kilometre radius, the Mandurah Bay Tavern and the Lakelands Tavern. These venues have long provided safe, regulated environments for socialising without the need for additional competition. The introduction of another tavern-style establishment within such a short distance will not only be unnecessary, but also lead to increased traffic, noise and antisocial behaviour. A particular concern is the risk of creating a pub triangle where patrons move between multiple venues in one outing. This kind of drinking circuit is known to increase the likelihood of antisocial behaviour, including public disturbances, vandalism, noise complaints and street-level altercations. The area between the proposed tavern, the Mandurah Bay Tavern and the Lakelands would effectively form such a triangle, and within the same area are a high school and 2 primary schools. The close proximity of these venues to educational institutions raises serious concerns about the exposure of young people to inappropriate behaviour, the general safety of the school environment. Concentrating multiple large licensed venues within a small geographic area also places additional strain on local police, emergency services and nearby residents. Once such patterns are established, they are difficult to reverse and can fundamentally alter the character of the neighbourhood. Moreover, such a development could undermine the viability of existing local businesses that have supported the area for decades. The Mandurah Bay Tavern in particular is a cornerstone of the community, providing responsible service and supporting local employment, donations to schools and sport teams. I respectfully ask that the Council take into a serious account the City of Mandurah's alcohol management policy, particularly point 3, the need to consider the cumulative impact of licensed premises in a precinct, and point 4, the policy support for smaller community-focused licensed venues over large-scale taverns. This proposal clearly doesn't align with those policies or objectives, nor does it reflect the needs or values of our community. I urge the Council to reject the component of the structure plan and to prioritise thoughtful, sustainable planning that protects the social fabric and economic health of Mandurah Bay and Seaside. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Alinda, for your deputation. So next, in accordance with the Standing Orders 3.7, there are no other deputations of an opposite view, so I'll close the deputations on that particular item and move to the next one, which is 12.4, and we have Jane Bennett presenting on Report 6, the Mandurah Health Precinct Structure Plan, adopt for advertising, and we'll welcome Jane to the table.
Thank you, Mayor and elected members. I'm sure you've all received a copy of the notes and the slides, hopefully. Yes. Thank you. So we represent the owners of Lot 4 Lakes Road West Greenfields within the Mandurah Health Precinct Structure Plan. We do not support the proposed special use medical zone over Lot 4 on the basis that the assumptions are flawed and it sterilises half of our client's site. We request the City apply either an R40 zone over the whole site or a mixed-use zone over the portion fronting Lakes Road, which will allow a wider mix of viable land uses. So you can see the images that we've circulated. The Lot 4 is just highlighted as subject site there, if everyone's able to note that. Thank you. So ensuring a balanced approach to zoning is critical given the current housing supply crisis and rapidly escalating median house price in Mandurah. The site could potentially accommodate over 70 affordable dwellings delivered in the short term. We recognise the item has been presented to Council tonight for advertising, but given our fundamental concerns, we see it as important to raise with you now prior to the document being released. So the current owners purchased the site in 2015, and at the time it was zoned residential R40 in its entirety. In 2022, a structure plan amendment was approved to rezone the site for special use medical or healthcare zone to facilitate a Medibank private day surgery. Unfortunately, this fell through because Medibank could not secure sufficient medical professionals to staff the facility. Since 2022, the owners have been actively seeking a medical operator for the site. There have been no positive inquiries under the current zoning. Both our clients and the city have sought expert advice on medical floor space demand, which is outlined in the officer's report. The technical experts agree that there's no immediate demand for medical floor space as seen in our client's currently vacant site. Based on advice from the city staff, there's already capacity for over 31,000 square metres of medical floor space within the precinct boundary, meaning that the structure plan area already provides 75% of the required medical floor space capacity based on the current zonings. It will be over 16 years until there's additional demand beyond the current floor space capacity. In essence, the current narrow zoning of Lot 4 sterilises half of our client's site until at least 2042. In addition, the structure plan wrongly assumes that 84% of all medical floor space demand required across the city will be in this precinct. However, as currently occurs, a large amount of medical and ancillary medical floor space will be located at local centres and even in the CBD. So uses like GPs, physios, blood test facilities, dentists, medical imaging will not all be centralised on Lakes Road, but they will be located throughout the city. There are currently a large amount of these uses in the CBD, and they're an excellent way of activating the CBD and office space that's vacant. The precinct structure plan also fails to recognise recent approvals and investments across the broader Peel district in proximity to Mandurah, likely to offset any further need for additional supply. So assuming 84% of medical floor space is contained in the Lakes Road precinct is not realistic or in the best interest of the city more broadly. So therefore, we request that the council recognises the sterilisation of part of Lot 4 West Lakes Road for the coming 16 years under the special use medical zone and amend the zoning over the whole of Lot 4 to residential R40 or alternatively a mixed use zone for the portion fronting Lakes Road. Thank you for the opportunity to make the deputation, and I'm happy to take questions, Mayor, if there's the opportunity.
Sorry, no, we don't normally take questions, but thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you for your deputation.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to item 13, which is confirmation of the minutes. Now I'd like to call for a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of July 2025. Can I please call for a mover, Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Kearns. I now call for anyone who's opposed to the motion. If you are attending in person, please raise your hand if you are opposed. Is there anyone opposed to that item? No, that is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to announcements and orders of the day. We've had a number of things on in the last month, and I'd like to invite Councillor Pond to talk to us about the community chat. Play by the Bay.
Interesting. The community chat was held at the Southeast Dawesville Channel foreshore site in conjunction with the opening of the new playground area there. There were lots of people in attendance. The feedback on the new playground was exceptional all around. I really didn't hear a bad word about it. And something that was noted in particular to me was the parking area with good traffic calming elements to it, so children were safe around the car park area, which is not what you always hear children being safe at. So it was a very wonderful day, a chance to catch up with a lot of different residents, and I think when we to have the community chats when we open up new facilities like that is a very good opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Councillor Smith attended the Zonta Club of Peel Missing Persons Memorial, and she can't be here tonight, but she did send some words in, and I know she gave a very moving speech on the day. On the 8th of August, I had the honour of attending the 20th Annual Missing Persons Memorial Service hosted by the Zonta Club of Peel on the tranquil banks of Mandurah Bay. The service brought together the members for Dawesville, Mandurah and Murray Wellington, fellow councillors, representatives from the WA Police Homicide Squad, detectives, the State Emergency Services and most importantly the families of those who remain missing. We gathered in unity to acknowledge the deep pain carried by those in our community who continue to live with the heartbreak of absence of a lost one. I hope the service provided a quiet space for reflection, connection and solace, and that it offered some measure of comfort through the shared presence of others walking a similar difficult path. The memorial stands not only as a tribute to the missing, but also a powerful reminder that their absence is deeply felt in the heart of our city. It also served as a recognition of the tireless efforts of the SES, the emergency services personnel, police and detectives, whose dedication has touched the lives of many present on the day. And my heartfelt thanks goes out to the Zonta Club of Peel for organising this meaningful event and for their ongoing commitment to supporting our community through times of sorrow and uncertainty. And it's always such an important event that we hold each year. So I thank Councillor Smith for that. And I'm going to go back to Councillor Pond because, Councillor Pond, you attended the Melross Planting Day.
I did. Thank you very much. On the 10th of August, I attended the Melross Tree Planting Day, which had been set back from the original cancelled event on the 27th of July, which was set for National Tree Day. But due to inclement weather and lightning in particular, it was decided not to go ahead with the original planting date. So it was rescheduled for a fortnight later. Turned out that was in the week of National Land Care Week, so it worked out well, fitting in with larger activities. The staff had the opportunity to get many of the seedlings planted, about 3,000 in the reserve area. But community had a chance to plant 300 more seedlings. Men of the Trees were there with giving away 600 trees themselves, Lions Club providing sausage sizzle and all that sort of thing. Very nice community event. Big shout out to City of Mandurah staff, particular Polly Hammond, for pulling it together in short notice the way she did. And the last thing I'll say, it also gave us a chance to give a big public congratulations to last month's local legend winner, Mel Horton from the Bouvard Coast Care Group. And the work she's done and the work the Bouvard Coast Care Group does is quite outstanding in their not only their efforts but their successes in rehabilitating coastline and vegetation down in that area. So well done all round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. And now comes to one of my favourite parts of the council meeting, and it is my absolute pleasure to announce the recipient of the Local Legend Award for August, a truly inspiring member of our community, Danny Wilmot. Danny is a quiet yet powerful force along Mandurah's coastline. As a dedicated wildlife rescuer with Western Australia's Seabird Rescue, he has spent countless hours responding to calls for help, rescuing seabirds entangled in fishing lines or affected by pollution. His work is physically demanding, but Danny approaches each rescue with calm expertise, deep compassion and remarkable patience. Often armed with nothing more than a towel and a gentle touch, he ensures that injured birds are safely captured and given a second chance. To many in our community, Danny has become a trusted figure, a quiet guardian of our local wildlife. His presence brings reassurance that Mandurah's treasured seabirds are being looked after with care and respect, but Danny's impact doesn't stop at rescue work. He's also a passionate advocate for environmental education and sustainability. Whether he shares stories and techniques at community events like the Mandurah Walk and Talk, serving as the treasurer on Coastal Waste Warriors, or contributing his time and expertise as a member of the Mandurah Environmental Advisory Group, Danny is always working to protect our environment. Danny's involvement across so many environmental fronts reflects his unwavering commitment to the health and future of Mandurah's natural landscape. And while we are incredibly grateful for his tireless efforts, it's also important to look ahead to a time when people like Danny don't have to spend so much time cleaning up after others. Imagine how fabulous it would be if our society embraced responsible waste disposal and environmental care to the point that rescuers and volunteers could instead focus on restoration and conservation, not damage control. Through both action and advocacy, Danny exemplifies the best of our community. His dedication, humility and love for local wildlife make him a truly deserving recipient of this award. And please join me in congratulating Danny Wilmot, our local legend for this month.
I don't know what to say after that. So thank you, Mayor Knight, and to the whole City of Mandurah for this award and for the recognition of my contribution to our wonderful city. I suspect few volunteers do their work to receive recognition. Most don't, but it is wonderful and I have to say very humbling when it does occur. So again, thank you. Mandurah is an environmental hotspot with amazing landscapes, waterways, birds and animals. And it's a real privilege for me to be part of some of the teams who work to preserve and protect that environment, including WA Seabird Rescue and Coastal Waste Warriors. Most of our work is focused on where the environment meets humankind, and unfortunately it's not always a good meeting, as our Mayor has said. And whether that be picking up litter, rescuing birds who are entangled in it, or educating our residents about what they can do to reduce that amount of litter. I couldn't do what I do without being part of those teams, and I acknowledge them and the presence of some of their volunteers tonight who are here, as well as the many other local environmental groups who contribute so much to the Mandurah environment. And I also thank my partner Cheryl for her support and encouragement. I'm not sure if the bird rescue widow is a term, but that happens at times. I did want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the foresight, investment and courage shown by the City of Mandurah in ensuring that our environment is sustainable. The people in this room have a large say in what happens in Mandurah's environment, and I really want to acknowledge the work that's been done. It was highlighted to me because I had visitors from over east last week, and I took them on a city tour, including, as you might guess, looking at many of our environmental jewels and some of the developments that have occurred across the city. At the end, they stopped me and they said, "Danny, we're amazed at how much the city contributes. It's not like that where they came from." And they were amazed by the environmental focus of the city and by the many investments made both to showcase it and to protect it. So be assured, not 1 cent of your budget that is spent on the environment or the time spent on developing strategy is wasted. And please maintain that focus and investment. I think it's a very important thing you can do as a City Council. So finally, remember a good saying, I think, individually we are one drop, but together we can be an ocean for change. So thank you for the award. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. So I'm just going to remind you that you don't have to stay for the entire meeting unless you'd really like to. Just don't feel obligated. The rest of us will be here and we have got a fun night ahead. So, Okay, let's move to the next item, which is declarations of interest. Elected members and officers now asked to declare any real or perceived interest they may have in respect to the reports listed for consideration at this meeting. Should an elected member or officer declare an interest, I would remind them of the need to leave the chamber immediately prior to that item's discussion. CEO, have you received any declarations of interest?
Yes, Mayor, I have received a number. The first one is in relation to Mayor Caroline Knight and Councillor Amber Kearns in relation to report number 3 in relation to the Walga Convention, and both have declared a financial interest as both are named as a delegate for the Walga Convention. The next declaration is a declaration of proximity for Councillor Amber Kearns in relation to report 6, as the proximity interest relates to a closely associated person being the corporate entity that owns 129 Murdoch Drive, Greenfields, and will leave the room. The next declarations of impartiality interest for CEO performance and remuneration review report, as she knows myself on a personal basis, and I have a financial interest in the confidential report CEO performance and remuneration review, as the report relates to my employment contract conditions, and I will leave the chamber for this item.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to item 16, which is questions from elected members, questions of which notice has been given. I believe we have received a number of questions from Councillor Zolani. Councillor Zolani, would you like to read out your questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 questions, so I ask one by one. Number 1 question is to CEO. Could you please tell me how much our last year 2024-2025 budget was, how much was actually spent, and how much remained unspent as of 30th June 2025. Here I want to mention, by unspent, I mean the actual funds the city could not finish spending during the financial year, not just the reported surplus. I would also appreciate if you could provide the same information for the last 3 years, for example, 2022, 2023, 2023 and 2024 for my record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zolani. We'll now move to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. The city officers will arrange a time to go through with Councillor Zolani on how local government finances result in a surplus and a deficit, because the actual difference between budget and surplus and the actuals result in the surplus or a deficit. So we will go through that with Councillor Zolani in a private briefing.
Thank you. Second question, Councillor Zolani.
My second question to CEO. I have noticed that some large trees in Hall Park have been marked with yellow bands. Could you please explain the purpose of these markings? Are they intended for removal, preservation, or another reason? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, the tape around the trees are to advise anyone entering the site that these trees must be retained. The trees that are not taped are to be assessed during the clearing of the site and will be retained if it does not conflict directly with the works. Certainly the priority around tree retention has been assessed by the city's then arborist, and the trees are identified of value which are to be retained, and those that can potentially be removed during those demolition works. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions that have been provided with notice, due notice? No, if that's the case, we'll move to 16.2. Are there any questions from elected members? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, through the chair to the relevant officer. With the arborist's report, can councillors be provided with a copy of that when the actual inspections happen and the arborist's report prior to any trees being removed? That's one question.
Thank you for the question. To the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, certainly happy to circulate that information to elected members. Yes.
Thank you. Further question, Councillor
Subsequent
Shoemaker?
question to the relevant officer, through the chair, to the relevant officer, where is the proposed development on the Western Foreshore? At what stage is that at with state government, please?
Thank you for the question. Through to the CEO.
Through you, Mayor, we are still waiting for the advertising to occur. So it's with the state government. We were required to provide some information in relation to some easements, and that information has been supplied to the state government. So we are waiting for an indication of the next steps, and I'm sure that will happen in due course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Subsequent question to that issue. Can I please have confirmed through the relevant officer that no trees will be removed prior to an approval being granted or not being granted until a decision is made?
Thank you for the question. Through to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
There are proposed tree removals as part of the demolition of the old King's Carnival site. But that's the only tree removal that's anticipated, aligned with the arborist report. So, thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you.
subsequent question.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Through the chair, why do trees need to be removed during the demolition process?
Thank you for the question. To the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, some of the trees will need to be removed because they actually are too close to some of the existing infrastructure on site. So, for example, the old mini golf site, those trees are sort of incorporated into the materials there. So it's not practical to remove that infrastructure without having to remove some of the trees that have been assessed as having low value. There are also trees that have been assessed as having structural and other issues, which potentially pose a hazard to obviously anyone accessing that site. So they're the main reasons that the trees that have been earmarked potentially for removal will be removed.
Thank you, Chair. Question is, number one, I don't believe mature trees are of low value, but how many trees are we talking about that will need to be removed?
Thank you. Through to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, that will be contained in that detailed information from the arborist. I must admit on hand I don't have the specific numbers, but certainly we'll circulate the information to elected members and the relevant species of trees to be retained with high value, and obviously those that are considered by the arborist to have low value for the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. Through the chair, different question, different subject. To the relevant officer, was the Warringup Springs Boardwalk constructed as per the plan approved by council?
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Through to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, so the Warringup Springs work, and I must admit I'll need to take on notice any plan approved by council. I'm not aware that there was a plan approved by council, but I'll certainly take that part on notice and confirm. But initially, I do confirm that it was expected that that entire structure would need to be replaced. Following further investigation through our structural engineer, and the advice that followed was that we were actually able to retain the pole foundation and the existing pole foundation. So I guess with that, we were able to make some significant cost savings and certainly reduce the environmental impact by retaining those pole foundations and effectively just renewing the superstructure and certainly extending the life of the existing structure significantly. So that's the reason that the works have been completed in the way that they are.
Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. Through the chair. Last question. Could I please get an update from the relevant officer in relation to the insurance claim that the City of Mandurah made to LGI's insurance in relation to the Mark roof collapse, please?
Thank you. Through to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. The insurance has been settled, the proceeds, and the City received $4.5 million in relation to that insurance claim.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors with questions? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on Councillor Schumacher's questions regarding the Western Foreshore tree removal and the high level of public interest, how will the city approach communication, particularly with the community, particularly regarding the tree removal? Will those arborist reports be made public with other communication regarding that removal and other associated demolition works?
Thank you for the question. Through to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. So in relation to the communications, we'll work with the Mayor in relation to the information that we will relay, and we will discuss the communications plan in relation to the demolition. We are still receiving, we have received, well, the submission period for a request for quote has closed, so we will need to assess the submissions prior to any demolition works occurring as well. So all still very early in relation to the scope of the demolition.
So subsequent, if I may, Chair, so the information being provided to council, will that be confidential in regards to the arborist reports?
Thank you for the question. Through to the CEO.
At the moment, it will be a confidential briefing that we'll provide, and then once we receive the submissions and the request for quote process has been finalised, then we'll work through the information that we can release to the community.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any other questions? There is a question from Councillor Wright. Councillor Wright.
Thanks. Through the chair, just on the topic of tree coverage on the Western Foreshore, can you just confirm for council that while there are some mature trees being removed as part of the works, that the overall canopy cover across the site actually increases due to the scale of the replanting and landscape design? And on top of that, can we kind of have information on the net canopy data as opposed to just the raw tree counts?
Thank you for the question. Through to the CEO.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. As part of the Western Foreshore Leisure Precinct and the plan that was approved by Council, I can confirm that there will be an increase in tree canopy over the entire Western Foreshore Leisure Precinct site. And in terms of net canopy, then we can certainly get the number in relation to the planned trees that will be planted versus any tree removal in relation to this particular site as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just on that, through the chair, that will also be communicated back to residents. Is there a long-term proposed canopy, or what the canopy will eventually look like, being communicated home as well?
Thank you. Through to the CEO.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. We can certainly include that in our communications as well. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Solani, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. This question I didn't give the notice. There's a follow-up question about the whole park trees. My question to CEO is, how does the city justify prioritizing the removal of healthy trees in whole park over addressing trees that are causing real long-standing damage to residents, homes, streets, and infrastructure? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. To the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, just to clarify, I guess, my previous response. So the trees that are intended to be removed as part of the demolition works are required because they need to be removed as part of the demolition work because of the proximity to the other infrastructure that will be demolished. Certainly in terms of the trees that have been mooted as being required to be removed, subject to further assessment on site as the work progresses, have been indicated as being low environmental value, and as I also previously mentioned, may otherwise be compromised in terms of the structure and may pose a hazard. So that's the extent of the removal work that is currently being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from councillors? No, if that's the case, we will now move on to item 17, which is business left over from previous meetings. And there was none. I'll move to item 18, which is the recommendations of committees. So I'm going to propose that we've got a number of items that were dealt with by the Audit and Risk Committee. I'm going to ask if there is anyone that wishes to remove any of those items. Otherwise, we will move them all en bloc. So are there any items that councillors wish to withdraw, and we will deal with those before moving the rest of them? Just looking around to see if there are any councillors that wish to withdraw any of those items. No? Okay, so if that's the case, so the items that we are discussing, can I just have that on the screen? There are a number of reports. Can we just... So we've got the external audit report, the household hazard waste storage, the One Council post implementation review, the workforce plan update, and the work health and safety annual performance review, and the strategic internal audit plan and annual audit plan, and the procurement internal audit 2025. And those were all dealt with at the Audit and Risk Committee. And I'm going to ask if we can have a mover and a second for those. We have a mover, Councillor Rogers, and a seconder, Councillor Pond. Is there anyone who wishes to... Councillor Rogers, do you wish to speak? No, because we're moving it on block. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose that motion? If that's the case, can you please raise your hand now? Okay, so if that's the case, I will declare that is carried. So thank you. And that is moving all of the reports that came from the Audit and Risk Committee. We will now move to reports from the Chief Executive Officer, item 19. And the first report that we have tonight is item 1, the financial report for June 2025. The recommendation is before you on the screen. I'm going to call for a mover and a seconder of that report. Can I please ask for a mover? I beg your pardon, Jared. I have failed to call you up and provide so that you can provide your report. Please come forward and provide a report to us. Apologies, Jared. We seem to have a thing about this happening each month.
Thank you, through the chair. The financial report for June 2025. So if we can move on to the first graph. A quick look at the operating revenue and expenditure. You can see that operating income, we moved just slightly above budget by the end of June, and operating expenditure was slightly below budget. So great news there. A look at the capital graphs, which is the next slide. You can see non-operating income was going up towards the end of the year, but in line with capital projects that were slightly under budget. We will see an adjustment to those capital projects as invoices fall either side of the financial year, and we will do carryover adjustments in the next couple of months. On the next slide, interest we saved through our loan offset facility for the year was $217,000, and term deposit rates have decreased in line with interest rates decreasing to around 4.3%. Our rates receivable for June 24, we had 96.1% collected. June 25, we ended up with 96.1% collected. So that is a great result for that year. For properties with a debt of greater than 10,000, we were pretty much on even by the time we hit June, and rates properties 3,000 to 10,000, we were drawing very close to where we were last year as well. In June, we had 2 tenders awarded, which I'll take as read on the screen, but I'd also like to note that the city's procurement team observed the tender evaluation process and is satisfied that the probity and procedural aspects relating to the evaluation were compliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Just like to thank the Finance Manager for that report. Thank you. Now we'll move to the mover. If you'd like to... sorry, Councillor Cumberworth. There we go. Councillor Cumberworth, would you like to...
It's always good to see the city tracking along our targeted expenditure and capital income. So thank you. Happy to move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. Councillor Pond.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the item, or are there any questions? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, through the chair. In the documentation, the report, it shows on page 11 a $3.7 million year-to-date actual surplus. Can the relevant officer just explain why it's at $3.7 million at this time, please?
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. I'll go to the manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. Currently, we're about halfway through our year-end process. So our year-end process for the 30th of June takes into account accounting journals that we need to do for year-end. So as we go through our process, we do see that surplus decrease as we account for reserve transfers in and out, invoices that fall either side of the financial year. So the $3.7 million that's quoted in this report is not the final figure. That figure will be presented to Council as part of the annual financial statements in once they're audited in around December.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other further questions? Anyone wishing to speak against the item? Okay, so if that's the case, I'll now put it to the vote. Those that are opposed, if you could raise your hand. No, that is carried, so thank you. We'll now move to item 2, the advertising of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. And the recommendation is before you on the screen. Can I please call for a mover? Councillor Rogers, and a seconder, Councillor Kearns. Councillor Rogers, would you like to speak to the item?
With pleasure. Happy to move the recommendation that would kick off the expression of interest process for our Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, and noting that once all of his expressions of interests are received, that a separate report will be provided back to Council for our ultimate consideration and appointment of the independent members. It's not uncommon, if you look at any advice from the Australian Institute of Company Directors or the Governance Institute of Australia, to provide guidance and commentary in relation to audit and risk committees of corporate structures, corporate companies. They recommend an element of independence that sits on the committee to really sense check the reports that are being provided to the committee, and to provide outside external expertise, often from people who have a vast array of experience in audit, financial management, and risk management. I'm seeing that these are all part of the changes that are coming from the state government as part of the local act reform, and I'm noticing a number of local governments are currently advertising for their independent members as well. So we've got some great independent members on our committee, but look forward to what comes in this expression of interest process, and happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. We'll move to Councillor Kearns.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, I'm very pleased to second that. The Audit Risk Improvement Committee is one of the most important committees we have. It underpins trust in council by making sure we are accountable, transparent, and always improving in how we manage risk, governance, and finances. With these changes through state government reforms, all local governments will soon be required to have the independent presiding member, like Councillor Rogers mentioned. I'm actually really excited about this. I know that the people around the table that come from our community bring a wealth of knowledge. We are ensuring that every decision that we make is in line with the best outcomes for our city, and sometimes they pick up on things that we may not pick up on because we are on the inside. Tonight's recommendation is about getting ahead of these changes by setting the right selection criteria and advertising broadly for expressions of interest. We really want to attract highly qualified people with or cyber security. Bringing in these expertise from outside of council will continue to help us to answer those hard questions, spot risks early, and make sound decisions on behalf of our community. As an audit and risk committee member, I've really seen value in being in that space. I've learned a lot about local government by sitting in that room, and there's things that come up at council that I don't think I would have been able to understand if I hadn't have sat at the audit and risk meetings. So I'm really grateful for that. I'd like to say a massive thank you to the officers for their work in preparing this process. And I encourage everyone to high five it and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kearns. Is there anyone that has a question in relation to the report? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the report or the recommendation? If that's the case, is there anyone who's opposed to the motion? I'll put it to the vote. Anyone who's opposed? No, that is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to item 3, which is the 2025 West Australian Local Government Association Convention and Annual General Meeting, nomination of delegates and voting guidance. I have a declaration and so does Councillor Kearns on that one, so we will leave the room and I will hand to Councillor Rogers to run this section.
Thank you, Council. Now that the 2 elected members have departed the meeting, we have a recommendation that is contained on the screen, an officer recommendation. If we could just come down to that. There, the recommendation is on the screen in front of you, just seeking a mover and a seconder in relation to that item. Moved by Councillor Cumberworth and seconded by Councillor Bob Pond. I'll come to the mover first, Councillor Cumberworth.
Happy to move that Mayor Knight and Councillor Kearns represent Mandurah at the Welga Convention and hopefully advocate for other local governments to be run as well as the City of Mandurah. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I come to the seconder, just if we could pop it in the minutes that Councillor Ryan Burns has just departed the meeting. Thank you. To the seconder, Councillor Bob Pond.
It's very appropriate that our Peel Zone delegates, the Mayor and Councillor Kearns, attend this meeting. And the AGM, they've got plenty of background with our strategies, plans and policies and advocacy frameworks that they will be able to execute their votes well. And I would encourage everyone to endorse this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Is there anyone speaking against the motion? There does not appear to be so. Is there any questions from the council in relation to the report? Councillor Cumberworth.
How many councillors do we need to pass a vote?
I assume we're not... I assume we just need a normal simple majority as opposed to an absolute majority, but I think even if we had an absolute majority, we're fine. But thank you for your diligence on our quorum. I greatly appreciate it, Councillor Cumberworth. Quorum clarified. Is there anyone against is anyone voting against the recommendation? There being no one, we will declare that carried unanimously. I think it's 10 though, because we've got a councillor out of the room. Yeah, thank you. And with that, I'll bring the 2 elected members back into the room and hope they enjoy their time at the convention.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Okay, we'll now move to item 4, which is the review of the council financial investment policy. Sorry, I'm just looking. Okay, so item 4 is the review of the council financial investment policy. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. The recommendation is before you on the screen. Can I call for a mover and a seconder? I've got Councillor Kearns and Councillor Pond. Councillor Kearns.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move this. This policy is one of the important ways we make sure that our community's money is managed safely and responsibly. The proposed updates strengthen how we protect funds, ensure compliance and maintain trust. I also want to touch on the inclusion of ESG investments, that is environmental, social and governance considerations. This means that where possible and safe, we can look at investment opportunities that not only meet strict financial and safety requirements, but also reflect community's values of fairness, social responsibility and good governance. The reality is that people in our community want to know that their money is working wisely, not just earning a return, but also in ways that align with good practice. This option ensures that if suitable opportunities are available, we can consider them, but only if they meet the same financial standards as any other investment. This policy strikes the balance, the right balance. It keeps our funds safe, gives us flexibility where it is appropriate, and ensures we continue to act transparently and responsibly on behalf of our community. And I encourage my fellow councillors to support this item.
Thank you, Councillor Kearns. We'll now move to the seconder, Councillor Pond.
Little to add other than why wouldn't you open up the option as is presented in option 1 to allow ESG investments if they are found to be at the same rates as you would otherwise get. So it provides an option that may or may not ever be taken up, but I think it's a good one to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Are there any questions from anyone? Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I'm just puzzled. If the investments with the ESG go through the same criteria, what's the difference then? Why would we even have it in there if we're still measuring them with the same criteria that we would? I don't understand why the different option was there.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Through to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. It just provides the city officers where it is equal or greater that it gives direction to put the city's funds into those investments, or there's an option to put the funds into those investments. Yeah, it's a direction, and that's policy guided by, as council set the policy, then the city officers know to have a look at that at all times to make sure that if there's an opportunity to invest, that is looked upon favourably.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Anyone, another question? Councillor Burns, or speaking against the item? Councillor Burns?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Our duty as councillors is clear. Protect ratepayers' money, get the best return and stay focused on our core responsibilities. The current investment policy does not include ESG. It was reviewed as recently as 2019, and I don't recall any council or community member raising ESG as a priority. I can only assume this idea has come from staff as part of the review, but ultimately it's council's job to decide what's best for the community. Ratepayers are already paying hundreds of thousands more for what I believe is virtue signalling on decarbonisation. To be consistent, I cannot support another layer of this woke box ticking to our investments. We are here to deliver value and services, not make ourselves feel virtuous. Some will say we'd only go ESG if the returns are better. But if that's true, why mention ESG at all? If the best investment happens to be branded ESG, we'll take it because it's the best return, not because of the label. By writing ESG into policy, we create a doorway for ideology to creep in and standards to slip. Even if there's no cost today, if the two rates are the same, the issue is a precedent. Once ESG language is in the policy, it creates a foothold. Today, it's same or higher. Tomorrow, it could be close enough and the next review could see ESG weighted more heavily. This is the thin edge of the wedge and a slow shift from returns-focused investing to values-based investing. It is not clear or objective. The wording leaves room for the interpretation. Our goal is to maximise value for ratepayers. Why insert language that could dilute that focus in the future? The E in ESG isn't always clean. Much of the world's solar relies on polysilicon from Xinjiang province in China, where forced labour is reported, and rare earths and cobalt often come from African mines, including the DRC, where child labour is rife. ESG is also plagued by greenwashing. Products marketed as ethical often aren't. Who decides what is socially responsible? And how consistent is it when Australia still trades daily with countries like China, where forced labour and environmental damage are common? Why pretend virtue here when our supply chains tell a different story? Our investments are already restricted to authorised deposit-taking institutions with strict legal and ethical obligations. They cannot invest in slavery, terrorism or unlawful activities. Council is not an activist fund manager. Every dollar tied up in ideology is not a dollar working for the people who pay the bills. Option 2 is the right call for Mandurah, and that's why I foreshadow a motion to move option 2 should this one fail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Is there anyone wanting to speak for the item? Councillor Rogers.
Thank you. Just make some brief points. The term ESG investing really is about values alignment, and as Councillor Kearns rightly stated, those terms are environment, social and governance. Our strategic pillars of the organisation are environment, social, leadership and economy. So I'm not too sure it's the slow creep of woke ideology, but aligning our investment strategy to our strategic plan in terms of the outcomes that we want to see, both in the community and in the world as well. The important part I think about ESG is it's actually about harm minimisation in terms of the companies we might not choose to invest in. I'm aware of other companies that corporates might not choose to invest in because of the nature of the business that they do, or their client base or their membership. And this really signals, I think, as Councillor Burns was stating, that it is about values investing. It's about linking the values of the organisation to the investment pool of public money, and ensuring that the only consideration isn't just how much dollar you can extract, regardless of the damage that does. So I'm actually happy to support the option 1 in relation to this.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the item? Question, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. I can see both sides, actually. I kind of agree with both sides, which makes no sense. When we're talking about ESG, who gets to decide what is an ESG-friendly investment? Is that subjective, or where does that come into it?
Thank you. Through to the Manager of Finance.
Thank you, through the Chair. There are quite strict standards to meet to become an ESG term deposit provider. It needs, I'll try and get the wording right, it needs to meet the Climate Change Board's prescription of what an ESG deposit is. They set that up to get around the concept of greenwashing in these ESG term deposits. So they set the standard for those term deposits, and that's what the city is proposing to abide by.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Further question?
Thank you. And just another question. Does this policy lock us into preferring ESG, or are there circumstances where we can make a values judgment that might have us invest otherwise?
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Through to the Manager. Or through to the CEO.
Through you, Mayor. In the policy, it states that it is an option available, but only that option is available if it meets the investment section outlined in the policy, including that the rate of interest is the same or higher than a non-ESG investment.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Wright has a question. Is that correct? Councillor Wright?
Just through you, Chair. Thanks for that. Look, my only concern about the ESG is that it's a bit of a subjective topic and there's a bit of a shifting nature around ESG definitions. So my concern lays with, we've currently got a government going gung-ho down this solar, wind, renewable energy pathway. We've got the opposition saying that they possibly wouldn't go along that way. What protections are there to the city if a change in government brings about a change in policy, and would that then impact the ESG investments that we've put our money into? Because our core function is obviously protect the ratepayer money and get your liquidity in return. So does the liquidity fall away with a change in government? I just have a few questions there, or that question.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll go through to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll answer, and if the Manager of Finance has anything else to add, please add after I have spoken. What the Manager of Finance had said before, though, that it is actually a environmental social or governance investment is determined by the board. The climate change, I'm sure there's probably getting the board's name incorrect, but the climate change board. So that would be governed by other standards than a change in party that is governing our Commonwealth. So it is there is a criteria that is established, and we obtain that information from the authorised deposit institution as well. So we do inquire through them in relation to what products they have available for that are within the criteria of an ESG, and they are very limited, almost to the point where I think there is one that is only available. So as we've said before, it's very unlikely that this will occur in the immediate future, but it may be something that may be open to city officers to explore and obtain quotes from in the future, with the inclusion of this option for option one. So, Councillor Wright, it isn't. I don't believe it's a change of government that will change the criteria. It is determined by a board, and the authorised deposit institution provides us with the advice on what is classified.
Thanks. Thank you. If there are no further Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. Through the chair.
A question, Councillor Shoemaker. Yes.
Thank you. Questions. We've heard the words term deposit institutions. Is this banks or who is it?
Through to the CEO.
Authorised deposit institutions we refer to as banks.
Okay, thank you. And the subsequent question. So we have the Climate Change Board that will be authorising financial institutions. But this is what was being said. The Climate Change Board, they have to meet the criteria of the Climate Change Board. So they set the criteria to the banks, but they're not a banking institution, or the Reserve Bank, for example.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. I think the manager will give an attempt to answer that.
Thank you, through the chair. What the board does is certify that the term deposit money, where that is going to be invested into. So they certify all those investments. They don't certify the bank to hold the deposits. It's the bank's prerogative whether they create these term deposits and take the money. But the board certifies where those money are invested into, what companies that money is invested into. So it's very limited into where these funds go. Which is why not many banks actually offer these. There is, as the CEO said, there's only one on offer at the moment.
Further question, Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm more confused, and I won't speak to it, but I will be voting against the recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, so just acknowledging that Councillor Burns has foreshadowed option 2, I'll go to Councillor Kearns to close the debate.
Thank you, through the chair. It's quite difficult to close a debate when you have been informed on things that you weren't aware of before opening your reasons for something. Firstly, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Councillor Burns for your research. I haven't gone that deep dive into research around that space, so I really appreciate you informing us, and, yeah, that was fantastic. Your questions as well, Peter Jackson, I really appreciate them, and Councillor Schumacher. For me, I made my decision to support this recommendation based on our strategic pillars and the values aligning with what our city is trying to achieve. I didn't have the background references that other councillors may have had, and I guess because I've already made the mark, I'll continue to back it. But if I was able to, I would definitely have a better, deeper conversation with those that are more informed. But yeah, we learn new things every day. So thank you so much for that opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Kern. Thank you, Councillor Kearns. So I'll put that motion to the vote. Are those opposed to it? And Councillor Wright, are you supporting or opposed? Councillor Wright?
I'll support.
Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to item 5, which is the review of the council procurement policy. Okay, so we have the recommendation before you on the screen, and I will call for a mover and a seconder of the council procurement policy. The officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cumberworth. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Rogers. Councillor Cumberworth.
The City of Mandurah administration has done very well in the last few years, upgrading our contract management and procurement. There are some edits here to the procurement policy in preparation for going online with One Council in October, and I'm happy to move this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you. Not going to repeat the well-put points of Councillor Cumberworth, only to say that procurement, for those who don't take time out of their Mondays to come along to the Audit and Risk Committee, procurement is something that the organisation takes extremely seriously because it is public money, and there's been a wealth of reports that the city has had into its procurement practices, and the city is always looking at ways to continuously improve its policy with respect to procurement. So happy to support the recommendation that will prepare us for One Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any councillors? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. I have a series of questions.
Thank you.
On another deep dive. With respect to 4.2, engaging Australian disability enterprises and Aboriginal businesses, before deleting this clause, can the CEO give assurances that removing it is better than keeping it in? Are all staff, not just procurement officers, across the delegated authority register and regulation that's stated in the proposed policy? Retaining it offers practical benefits as a quick reference, so what harm is it in leaving it in there?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. So I'll go to the CEO.
Just a clarification question. 4.2 in the proposed procurement policy does include Aboriginal businesses and Australian disability enterprises on page 117.
So I was referring to the list of where you juxtapose the amendments, so I can find the page if I've lost everybody.
So sorry, just to
So
clarify.
there is a, if I misunderstood it, but I think there's a paragraph that's been removed, is that correct? Yeah, and so I'm asking, why does it need to be removed and not just left in? Surely it's not a 1,000-page document. It's quite a succinct, concise document. What advantage is a removal, or is there a necessity to do it? And in a sense, are the staff across all these documents? And surely a prompt would add benefit.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the Director of Business Services, Executive Manager, Governance Services.
Thank you for the question, through the Chair. There is a substantive body of documentation in addition to the procurement policy that provides support to purchasing officers to enable them to understand the operation. This is engaging with Australian disability enterprises and Aboriginal businesses remaining in the policy. It's one subparagraph that's been removed, which is just a repetition of legislation. The procurement procedures that are available to staff do go into more detail about different procurement sources that are available and how to directly engage with those bodies. So ideally, we're taking those directions out of the policy and moving them into procedures that are accessed more readily by officers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Another question?
The confusion might come in when the two documents, the current and the proposed, their subheading numbers start changing. But I believe 5.1 on the anti-avoidance. So on subjectivity and discretion, by changing to achieve to where this will achieve, are we not introducing more subjectivity? Who decides whether aggregation will achieve value and efficiency, and how will that be tested or challenged?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the Executive Manager of Governance.
This is through the Chair. The wording change here was really to recognise that it is actually quite a subjective test, and that's the same for all anti-avoidance tests across a variety of legislative instruments, tax legislation and the rest. When officers are making determinations to purchase in smaller blocks than aggregate contracts, more often than not, they're preparing a procurement plan, and we do document those decisions quite thoroughly. But you are correct, it is a subjective test, and that is what is being recognised in the policy.
Thank you. A further question, Councillor Burns?
On the same clause, why remove unintentional or otherwise? Does this mean accidental or careless splitting is no longer a breach? If intent can't be proven, how do we hold anyone to account?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the Executive Manager of Governance Services.
Through the Chair, in my review of this, I considered the phrase conducted with the intent, unintentional or otherwise, to be contradictory. You couldn't have the intent unintentionally of doing anything. So the previous paragraph read, procurement activities for the same goods or services must not be conducted with the intent, unintentional or otherwise, of separating or splitting. So it was just a correction to the use of language.
So if it wasn't intentional, it's not a breach. Is that what you're confirming?
Anti-avoidance doesn't necessarily require intent.
So to the CEO.
Just through the Mayor, in relation to intent, there are general terminology in relation to what intent actually means. It doesn't need to be described in whether it was unintentional or otherwise. If there is intent and there's reasons for undertaking the procurement activities, then that is always documented in our procurement process anyway. So it is actually it doesn't have any purpose in leaving unintentional or otherwise. it is when we're talking about intent, we're talking about there is sufficient justification. There has been a process that people have gone through where there's a segregation of duties as well in relation to assessing and undertaking those procurement activities.
So just subsequent, if I may, Chair. It's an issue of accountability. So how can you give assurance that if someone is splitting it and wasn't doing it intentionally, then that will be managed?
So through the Chair, we have a code of conduct where we talk about breaches of policy and there's relevant disciplinary actions that we go through. So it is a code of conduct matter. And if there is any avoidance, so that potentially is another body, whether it's Public Sector Commission or CCC, in relation to any other disclosures that may need to be required to be reported.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Burns, a further question?
Yeah, so then I suppose, we're speaking to, I'm trying to address both intent and outcome, so I'll take that answer as my next an answer to my next question. So how would an auditor view this change then? Have we ran it past any of those specialised skills to see if they would have a concern with this at a later date?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Through the question, just for some background, the City of Mandurah recently had an internal audit undertaken on procurement. Whilst it's a confidential matter that went to Audit Risk Committee, there were no findings of anti-avoidance practices across our procurement thresholds that they tested. Additionally, the City does undertake internal improvement reviews in relation to verifying anti-avoidance practices. And all amendments to the policy have either been recommended by the internal auditors or have been run by the internal auditors. So it is in line with what the internal auditors would consider to be best practice.
Thank you. Councillor Burns, is there another question?
Regarding 5.7, requesting tenders where value is less than the tender threshold, there is a removal there again, if I recall correctly. Even if this repeats in the regulation, what harm is there for leaving it in for clarity and transparency? It's a similar question to...
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the Manager, Executive Manager of Government Services.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Through the Chair, the removal of this was really, and the procurement policy is really intended to address procurement below the tender threshold, which means that calling tenders by officers across the city isn't ever going to be conducted outside of the procurement services team, and that's addressed in a fair amount of detail, and the delegation is set out with conditions in the instrument of delegated authority. So it was more sensible to remove this from the policy because it's not required. It's dealt with in another instrument that adequately governs the way we call tenders.
Thank you. And Councillor Burns, is there a further question?
I'll just skip through to the questions on clause 7.3 and the city's contract lifecycle management framework. What exactly is the city's contract lifecycle management framework, and who has approved it? Is it a public or an internal document?
Thank you. Through to the Executive Manager.
The city's contract lifecycle management framework is a document that's endorsed by the city's executive leadership team and incorporates all of the governing instruments that manage our contract management practices at the city.
Thank you. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. Does moving detail into the CLMF reduce transparency for elected members and the public compared to having it in the policy itself?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Through to the Executive Manager.
Through the Chair, the procurement policy is really intended to deal with purchasing and sourcing practices rather than contract management. There are a number of opportunities for transparency in relation to the city's contract management practices, and particularly the local government reforms that are coming out shortly that will require the city to publish all of its contracts contract values, contract variations externally.
Thank you. Councillor Burns.
So how will elected members, Chair, be assured of any variations handled under the CLMF are still fully compliant with the Act and regs?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Through to the Executive Manager.
We also have in our instrument of delegations a formal delegation for variations to tendered contracts, and the council will receive a quarterly report of our delegations exercised every quarter.
Thank you. Is that the end of your questions, Councillor Burns?
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I will speak against.
You're going to speak against, Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you, through the chair. Mine is a very simple reason at this stage why I will vote against, and it's based around one simple change that we have seen, which is the change in threshold of 10,000 to 49,000 to now 10,000 to 50,000, and only one written quotation is required. I cannot agree with that. $50,000 or $49,999 is a lot of money. I do believe it should go back to exactly what it was, and if it was that, then I wouldn't have a problem with the entire procurement threshold, or the time procurement report. I don't really care that it aligns to state government policy. I don't care, because we're not state government, we're local government. And our job is to be the custodian of the people's money, the ratepayers' money. I would not, and I don't know if to be anyone in this room who would just get one quote for work at our house up to, and it's $45,000, and not get 2 or 3 quotes. But we've been asked to approve it for the City of Mandurah, and I can't. So all I can do is put forward an alternative, amendment to the recommendation that the 10 to 50,000 returns to as it was. So I wish to make that amendment, move that amendment.
So you're going to move an amendment to the recommendation?
It is to the major amendments to the procurement thresholds.
Okay, and so do I have a seconder to that?
If the minute officer can type, we're going to have to add a new section called amendment. And the wording will be that there is an amendment up for the procurement threshold up to 50,000.
So I'm just going to adjourn the meeting for a couple of minutes while we just get the wording on this. So if we could cease the live streaming. So we're live streaming. Okay, so we'll resume the meeting. We have an amended resolution, an amendment before us, which has been put forward by Councillor Schumacher. It's before you on the screen. I'm going to ask for someone, Councillor Schumacher, you're moving that. Do we have someone to second? So Councillor Schumacher is moving and Councillor Zolani is seconding.
Sorry. Can we just make sure the mover and the seconder is just below the amendment, not there?
No, just below the amendment.
Yeah, thank you.
So the amendment, we've got Councillor Schumacher and Councillor Zolani. Is there any questions we want to ask of officers before we put that to the vote? The amendment, Councillor Cumberworth.
Through the chair, could the CEO please explain how the city ensures value for money when only requiring one quote for a $50,000 purchase?
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. We'll go to the Executive Manager of Government Services.
Thank you. Through the chair, there are numerous ways that officers will demonstrate value for money in circumstances where only one quote is received. So, as you might imagine, goods and services that the city acquires annually, even on an ad hoc basis, we have acquired on a repetitive basis, and we'll have recent quotations for those services to compare to from other service providers where a competitive process has been conducted. This does happen quite regularly across the city, where we will run one process for the delivery of a project, and then we'll deliver another very similar project where officers now under the policy are required to effectively rerun a procurement process that mirrors the previous. Quite often the services that we will engage will be on an hourly rate basis. So the analysis of value for money will be conducted based on the quantity of hours for the service provided, and the hourly rates are very readily comparable within our information system against previous quotes for that category of service. We can use published price lists available to government through WALGA and the state common use arrangement to compare offers with other prices. So there are many, many mechanisms to demonstrate value for money outside of a competitive process. And the policy does require, or the amended policy does require, that where one written quotation is received, that value for money assessment must be prepared and obviously saved against the purchase requisition for approval by the relevant financially authorised officer.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from councillors? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. I've got a couple, but maybe I'll just ask one on the back of, sorry, through the chair, of your comments. We're assuming, I imagine, that the quoting procedure is the mechanism for ensuring good value. But is what you're saying that's not strictly true, that there are other measures in place that ensure value, and the quoting structure is really just getting the price? So I think that's what I hear you say. I also am aware sometimes in in other worlds, you can't get more than one quote for a job. So what would be the impact of putting this structure back in place to the ease of operation or the efficiency of operation? And I'm just wondering that in the context of, I've seen the consultations. There's no external consultation was undertaken here. However, the policies of Coburn, Joondalup, Melville, Stirling, Swan and Wanneroo were considered. And I'm assuming between that pool, there's some expertise. So I'm kind of wondering how we got to where we were in the first instance. If we go back to this, what's the implication to our efficiency, I guess?
Thank
you.
you.
Few questions in there,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Go to the Executive Manager. Okay, we'll go to the CEO first and then we'll go to the Executive Manager. Thank you.
Mayor. In relation to the efficiency, so where we cannot obtain a quote, I'm the only one that can authorise a waiver of quotes. So it actually becomes very inefficient, and I will be approving where you can't because of we're re-establishing this criteria again. It will be presented to me for a waiver of quotes. So just to miss, if there's only one person that will quote, in terms of the number of requests, I do get a number. I don't have the number in front of me. However, it will reduce the inefficiencies that's occurring where staff are already being able to demonstrate value for money.
Thank you, CEO. Was there anything further the Executive Manager wanted to add? No? Are there any other questions? Councillor Jackson, you look like you have a further question. No?
Yeah. I'm just nervous about us making changes on the fly, all respect, Councillor Shoemaker, where officers have worked, I'm assuming, many hours on this to come up with what they've brought to us. And they are the experts in their field and they're working with this every day. I understand the optics of it, giving control of $49,999 to someone. However, can someone give me some context on that figure? It is a lot of money in my household budget, but in terms of what we spend and why we spend it and how often we spend it, can I get some context on that?
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Go to the Executive Manager.
In terms of value, we're spending over $60 million a year in materials and contracts. If your question, through the Chair, is in relation to on how many occasions we would spend within that threshold, so how many purchasing activities would occur in that threshold, I don't have the data in front of me. I could ballpark it based on the volume that I have seen. I would say that we would probably see several, like at least 100 to 200 processes per annum in that threshold at the city at the moment, potentially more. That would be a conservative estimate.
And so, sorry, under this, those are, each one of those would then need to come back through to the CEO potentially, or, yeah, okay, all right.
Thank you. Okay, if that's all the questions, Councillor, we do have an amendment in front of us, put forward by Councillor Shoemaker and seconded by Councillor Zolani. I will move to vote on that now. Yes, if the CEO would like to just refresh everyone on the process that we're going to follow.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is only the amendment. So if the amendment is carried, then this will be included in the substantive motion, and then you'll debate, we'll go back to the motion and you'll debate that. If it is lost, then the original recommendation will be what is debated. So just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware, and I can explain that again a little bit further if it is not clear.
Okay, so if everyone is happy, we will put the amendment, which is before us on the screen, to the vote. Those that And we're remembering we're doing it the other way around. So those that oppose the amendment, if they would like to vote, which means, what have we got? 1, 2. We need to know, Councillor Wright, do you oppose the amendment or support the amendment?
I oppose the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment is lost on that basis, and we will go back to the recommendation that was before us on the screen without the amendment, and in that case, the mover was Councillor Cumberworth.
Question.
So we had Councillor Cumberworth, Councillor Rogers, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Pond and Councillor Wright. And for the item we had Councillor Schumacher, Councillor Zolani and Councillor Burns and Councillor Kearns. So the amendment was lost, and so we're now back to the original motion. Yes, you were for the amendment. Yes, that's right. So the original amendment was moved by Councillor Cumberworth. I'm going to move to Councillor Cumberworth to close the discussion.
I commend the elected members for the vigorous discussion on this very important topic. Large local governments like the City of Mandurah are placed in a difficult situation. There's massive pressure to get the cheapest price for everything, but also every job and contract needs to be executed perfectly. And if anything goes wrong, the finger will be pointed. So it's this treacherous balance between ensuring the cheapest prices, but also excellent workmanship and jobs delivered on time. I think that these modifications to the policy allow the right amount of freedom and trust with our administration, while still providing a robust framework of checks and balances, as is commonly seen in large organisations like this. So I encourage everyone to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth.
Can I ask you? I want to know something. If I want to defer, propose defer, so when should I tell you?
Councillor Zolani, we've actually heard from the mover closing the debate, so we've actually closed the debate on this particular item.
If I want to defer, then when should I say?
That would have occurred. That would have occurred some time ago. We've actually gone to the mover, who's closed debate. So I'm going to put the item to the vote now. Councillor Cumberworth has closed. I'm going to ask for those that oppose the motion. Those opposing, Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Zolani and Councillor Burns. And Councillor Wright, are you moving to support or the item, or are you against the item?
Moving to support.
Support. So that item is carried. Thank you. Okay, we will now move to item number 6, which is the Mandurah Health Precinct Structure Plan, adoption for advertising. We'll move down to the... beg your pardon, Councillor Kearns is going to leave the room because she has declared an interest in this matter. The officer's recommendation is before you on the screen. I'm going to ask for a mover of the item and a seconder. So can I ask for a mover? Councillor Cumberworth and Councillor Pond. Councillor Cumberworth.
This is an ambitious health precinct structure plan, and look forward to seeing the community comments after this draft is circulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cumberworth. Councillor Pond.
Notwithstanding comments we've received earlier this evening, I'm quite happy for the structure plan and its form to go out for public comments, and we will look at any reviews that need to be done after that period. I'm sure there'll be a few points coming in from our community, and we can work from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Is there anyone wishing to speak with a question? Question, Councillor Burns?
Thank you, Chair. I understand this is just for advertising and I'm support seeking feedback from the community, but I want to make it clear that I'm mindful of the property rights of those affected and have some concerns about adding new restrictions. And thank you from the opportunity to hear from one of the owners' representatives early this evening. Can officers confirm whether all affected landowners have been directly consulted and if they support these changes?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. We'll go to the Director of Strategy. No, we'll go to the Manager of Strategic Planning.
Thanks, through the Mayor. Informally, officers have made communication with the major landowners impacted by this proposal before it's been presented tonight. But on the basis of the recommendation, there'll be a formal process and we'll be seeking their further advice directly as well.
Thank you. Further question, Councillor Burns?
How will Council balance the need for coordinated planning with respecting the rights and investment expectations of private landowners?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. It's an interesting question to pose to officers, but yes, Council will make the decision when it comes back.
So I refer to the lack of that information in the report then, and if the staff could speak for that.
Sorry, through the Mayor, just a question of clarity, lack of support in what regard?
Well, there's only a couple of references to the rights of the property owners as they are now. We are looking at putting further restrictions on those property owners. Is that correct? In terms of...
Thank you. We'll go to the Manager. Strategic
Thanks. Through the Mayor, look, just in terms of further restrictions, I just want to clarify that the city's initiating a structure plan over multiple properties which do not currently have structure plans over them, and we're actually facilitating development by assisting those landowners further. We've got a right to make a submission on the proposal as drafted, but we're actually enabling and assisting development rather than making more restrictions as part of this broader plan. Yes, there'll be one or two landowners potentially not happy, and we've heard from one tonight, and there'll be a process to follow to receive submissions, Council to review those submissions, but ultimately the decision maker on the structure plan will be the West Australian Planning Commission. So there's a fair bit of work to go yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Is there any further questions in relation to the item? Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, through the Chair. Just in relation to what Mr Director just said, and I do fully agree with what Councillor Burns said about an owner's right to do with their property, within reason, of course, what they wish to do development-wise. I totally agree with that. But if this one property, who obviously wants the R40, not what we have planned there to go to advertising, how can they, apart from doing the obvious and putting a submission, then it comes to council, but the ultimate decision maker is state government, how do they fight that with state government?
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll go down to the Manager Strategic Planning.
Thanks. Through the Mayor, look, the procedure set out for how a structure plan has progressed is very clearly set out in planning legislation and regulations, and all landowners, and particularly those that are potentially represented on these development sites, will be well and truly aware about how the process works, and that's the procedure that I set out just before in the previous question.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Jackson, you had a question?
Yeah, just some clarification, maybe in regard to a statement made in the earlier deputation, something along the lines of The plan fails to recognise recent approvals and investments across the broader Peel district in proximity to Mandurah, likely to offset any further need for additional supply. Assuming 84% of medical floor space is contained in the Lakes Road precinct, it's not realistic or in the best interests of the city more broadly. And I'm just contrasting that with what we're saying. Officers have sought external consultant advice as peer review of the pre-advertising submission and aligned to the needs analysis work undertaken, etc., etc. So I wonder if we could just get some clarity on what that is.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. We'll go to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
Okay, thank you. Through the Chair. I don't want to preempt any findings from or the feedback that might come back through the advertising period, but essentially what has happened in the lead up to this and in the development of this plan has been quite a thorough needs analysis undertaken in terms of what the medical and health needs are for not just us, ourselves and the Peel region, and a set of benchmarking undertaken as well. In terms of as this goes out, and I think that having been through the analysis that was provided, that was undertaken by Urbis in comparison to an alternative set of needs analysis that were undertaken by the speaker earlier on. I still feel quite comfortable with the assumptions that have moved into this, but effectively what we've done in terms of work coming to the 84% of floor space, we've been benchmarking the Peel Health Campus and within that region to other sort of competitive other precincts. And found that that's more or less where we should be looking to move to. And that is based on an assessment, not just benchmarking against other precincts, but taking into account the potential supply of medical floor space elsewhere within the city over this period. So there is it's quite right to say that there is a dispersion of these services across the city. The point is that is unlikely to continue within the future. There's not going to be the floor space for that to happen. That's point number one. The second point is when we take a step back and look at these precincts, they naturally congregate together and they create extra productivity benefits when you have these services co-located. So the dispersion of these services across the city or elsewhere outside of the Peel region necessarily undermines how effective and attractive that hub would be. It's those sort of principles plus the sort of taking a step back and looking at this at the longer term that we've taken in developing this plan before we put it out for advertising. But again, don't want to preempt the findings from that, but still I can confirm and clarify that there's been an extensive amount of not just planning analysis, but economic analysis and population projections that have gone into the formulation of this.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Rogers had a question.
Thank you. Just a question in relation to process. Encourage anyone in the area or anybody who has an interest more broadly to make a submission as a part of the submission process. But as a question of process, when this comes back into council, we have a committee, planning and community engagement committee, if I've got the title ready, which affords council the opportunity to make amendments and or alternate recommendations ultimately up to council. Will the feedback from the consultation process and the ultimate officer recommendation come back through that committee process?
Thank you. Through to the CEO.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, it will. However, with a new council, council forms the committee structure. So depending on what the new council form as a committee structure, and if that is still retained, then this would certainly fall within its terms of reference.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or anyone wishing to speak against the item? Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through the Chair. Just to ask to the relevant officer, what amount of consultation work occurred with the owners of this particular block in the making up of the precinct plan?
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Through to the Manager of Planning.
Yeah, thanks. Through the Mayor, we did have numerous communications with the landowner and the consultant team over the formulation of the plan. probably met at least 3 times, numerous phone calls and emails. So we're definitely aware of the concern and taking that on board in terms of the formulation of the report. Well, together with the information that we've received in terms of the needs analysis, I feel like we've come up with a plan that can be practical, but again, we will see how we go through the submission period.
Thank you. If there are no further... Councillor Shoemaker?
I'm actually going to speak against this, even though it's going out for advertising, which is actually the first time I've ever done it. What I'm doing here, we're talking about needs for floor space for medical businesses. And we've got 2 conflicting stories here as to the amount that's available, whether we need more. We're always going to need more in the future. But to me, we are limiting the owners of this block. We're saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. This is what we want. And to be honest, if I was in that position, I'd be bloody angry, quite honestly. Yes, it may have been zoned for that or the sort of zoning for it before, but the deal fell through. And investors, when they invest in property, they do it for a reason. The fact of the matter is that they've tried to get another development on here. That hasn't been forthcoming. So now we're saying, well, that's a bit of bad luck. The blocks, this is the way we want the block to be, and you're just going to have to live with it. I don't think that's fair. And I know, as I said, that it's only going out to advertising, but I just think this is wrong for the owners of this block, and that the special use, and as I stated, amend the zoning of the whole of Lot 4 to residential 40 or mixed use zone for the portion fronting Lakes Road. Surely that's a fair compromise in my eyes, and perhaps that's what I think should be going out to advertising. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Wright, you have a question? Councillor Wright?
Sorry, no, that's fine. Sorry, Chair.
No, okay. Councillor Burns, you have a question?
It's difficult to articulate, but I want to refer to our property acquisition strategy or policies when it comes to purchasing land for environmental reasons. Has the city ever considered or doing the same for land acquisition? Now, ideologically, I'm opposed for government for doing this, but in order to be consistent, has it previously considered acquiring land at a fair price, not what we hear in history where governments tend to offer below market rates, but if council sees that this zoning so essential, then has it ever considered purchasing this land in the same way that when we value environmental space, it seems this council and previous councils haven't hesitated in purchasing for that reason? Has that been a consideration?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll answer that particular question. That is something that council does have the right to workshop as we move forward, and certainly is something that you could raise as we move forward into the future. Councillor Jackson?
One last question, sorry.
Oh, I think we've got a question from Councillor Jackson.
Sorry, I get exactly what Councillor Shoemaker is saying. There would be a level of frustration if you were an owner. I really understand that. I'm just trying to think of... I think we've got a precedent here with what we did on Anstruther, where we initially were saying, was it 3 or 5 stories on Anstruther Road, if you want a new development. And then we realised that wasn't working. We got no uptake for a couple of years, I think. So then we made a determination that, okay, the market just is not there. So we amended that to 3 stories, I think. Or maybe, Ben, are you able to give us a bit more intelligent comment on that?
Councillor Jackson, just
Through the chair.
reminding you of your
Sorry.
question. It just seemed to be moving further away from the item before us, which is this is going out for community comments. So I'm
So
just going to
I bring
try and
that up
everyone
relative
back
to
in.
what we're talking about, I guess, in terms of where this may go in the future. So it's not like a hopeless hole if this doesn't work. We're talking about potential for vacant land for many years if the proponent's proposition is true, which I think we've done our due diligence, but I would just like a comment on how we handled the Anstruther. And is there a precedent there that we can say, well, that's available to us in future should this not come to pass?
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I do think that does sit right out of where we're talking. Well, it is a long way out. I think what we're talking about at the moment is adopting for advertising, but I think there is a conversation that can be had later when we get the comments back from community. But if the CEO wants to add anything more to that, I'm more than happy. No, I'm not going to. I'm never going to do that. Are there any other questions? We've actually got a recommendation before us. Councillor, if there are no other questions, I'm going to... You have a question, Councillor Pond?
On the lot in question, of which we had our deputation tonight, what is the current zoning on that land?
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Through to the Manager of Strategic Planning.
Thanks through the Mayor. This current zoning of the site in the local planning scheme is zoned urban development. There's an approved structure plan over it for healthcare purposes.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other questions, I'm going to move to the...
Sorry.
Councillor Schumacher.
Sorry, Chair. Look, I'm just asking this question, but in relation to the motion, is there any direct reflection on this particular lot? I can't see the whole recommendation. And can we change the motion to reflect lot four to residential 40 or mixed zone use for the fronting? I know I'm grabbing at sticks here, I know that, but I'm just asking, can amendment be made to change lot 4 in the structure plan to residential 40 or mixed use zone for the proportion fronting Lakes Road to go up to advertising?
Thanks, Councillor Schumacher. I will go to the CEO.
Somewhat complicated, I know.
Yes, there can be an amendment that is made. However, we would need to require an adjournment to prepare that amendment to be able to put that for council, like the last agenda item.
And I'm going to ask you, Councillor Schumacher, is this the time to have that discussion, or would it be more appropriate once the community advertising period has been allowed to flesh out all the issues?
How long's a piece of string, Chair?
So, Councillor Schumacher, are you wishing to move an amendment, or are you wishing to wait until the advertising has completed to have a further discussion?
In the sake of saving time, it would be handy to know where my other councillors sit on this, so I'm not wasting time, which I know there's not a format through this meeting to do that. How long would it take for the amendment?
We would need to take a recess, suspend the live streaming.
I actually would. I think it is fair on the owners of this block of land. It's going out for advertising, and it is their block of land.
So I'm just going to speak to that before we go any further.
That's fine,
I strongly support that we go out for advertising. I think this area is very, very important for our health precinct. I think this is the opportunity to really flesh out how important this area is. Mandurah is crying out for healthcare. We've got a huge demand on our health precinct. We've got a growing population. We need to be strategic. We need to look at this. We need to gather all the information, and I would urge council to support sending this out for advertising. However, I'm happy to hear. You can foreshadow, Councillor Shoemaker, which is probably the easiest option that is before you.
Thank you, Chair. That would be the easiest option, and I do understand it's only to go to advertising. So, yes, I wish to, I don't know how we're going to word this one, so I'd look to the CEO on the wording for a foreshadow motion.
They'll prepare it
If the motion is lost.
So I'm going to put the motion to council.
May I ask a question, please?
Councillor
Could
Burns.
Could I have Councillor Shoemaker's, without exact wording, just the vibe of what is being proposed in a sense? Could someone please concisely summarise that for me?
basically what they've said. This is basically what they've said.
What bit of paper you got?
Through you, Mayor, if I can summarise Councillor Shoemaker's, the representative who made the deputation, what they are asking for, what I think Councillor Shoemaker is asking for in a foreshadow motion, is that for amend the zoning over the whole of Lot 4 to residential 40 or mixed-use zone for the portion fronting Lakes Road.
Thank you, CEO. I think if we need to go one and not both, would that not be right? That it should be the mixed-use front, which was, as they spoke in the deputation, that was absolutely fine with them, I believe. So it's not. So it's R40 with the front being mixed use.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Councillor Shoemaker, you're speaking against the item, foreshadowing that you will move that should the item be lost.
Correct.
Thank you. I don't know if the Minute Secretary wants to.
No,
we don't need that. Okay, so what we have before us is the Mandurah Health Precinct Structure Plan, the adoption for advertising. I'm going to go to Councillor Cumberworth to close the item.
I'm going to close the item. Thank you.
Pardon?
I move the motion.
You're moving the motion? You're closing the motion?
So we have...
I beg your pardon.
I'm happy to see how everyone votes on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Burns?
Just a question, and apologies for being a bit lost, but we've got the substantive motion before us.
Yes.
The mover moved, the seconder seconded, someone spoke against, and foreshadowed a motion. Does someone else want to speak for, which might enable someone else to speak against, and then for, as our standing orders require?
I will be corrected there. Thank you, Councillor Burns. Does anyone wish to speak for the item? Well, actually, I have spoken for the item. Thank you. I did actually speak for the item. So does anyone wish to speak against the item? If that is the case, I will put it to Councillor Cumberworth to close the item as the mover.
So as Mandurah has become quite a satellite city to the City of Perth, the City of Perth does have all the doctors and lawyers and all the high-end technical expertise. Our CBD has suffered from lack of commercial development, and slowly but surely we're becoming a residential satellite suburb of the City of Perth. There will be a day when the City of Mandurah is truly a standalone city with a vibrant economy and a self-supporting system of support services. The purpose of this structure plan is to make the hard decisions now for future generations. So this motion is only for it to go out to advertising, for the community to have their say. There is probably potential variation in the structure plan across Lot 4 to provide an appropriate compromise, but that can easily be fleshed out over the next weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. So just noting that Councillor Shoemaker has foreshadowed some other words for that. I will put it to the vote and ask for those who oppose the motion. So we have Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Burns. That motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now need to call back Councillor Kearns, who has probably eaten all the food. I've one bit, please. Yeah. Okay, the next item is item 7, the Yalgarup National Park Ecotourism Development, closure of a portion of Tim Sickett Road and the Water Corporation easements. The council resolution is before you on the screen. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. Do we have a mover for the item? Councillor Pond and Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Pond.
I believe that the resolutions put before us are really just enacting basically what's been agreed to in the development planning stages that we've had for Yalgarup National Park. We'll provide for a parking area, but we'll still allow for throughways and will not diminish beach access in itself. We'll provide better services for the parking area. We'll provide better services for vehicles coming and going from the site, as well as non-four-wheel drive vehicles on the site, and help open up Yalgarup National Park. So I think these are all very standard and basic things to be going through to enable a strategic priority to proceed. So please vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. We'll move to Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, through the Chair. Just totally reiterate what Councillor Pond has just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Are there any questions? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. For the CEO, I appreciate you may have given assurance to Council because there may be some interpretations of this report that might be perceived by us and by members of the public that the amenity, the ability for vehicles to access Tim Thickett's beach and currently enjoy that is not in any way being compromised through this report currently. So if you could give that public assurance,
thank you, Councillor Burns.
Appreciate it, and that would assist me in my decision.
Thank you. I'll go to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
No, it will not be affected by this report. The purpose of this report is really to move the responsibilities around for the land, to enable the proposed works to take place that actually raise the amenity and functionality of access to Tim's Thicket as well.
Thank you. Further questions? No further questions from anyone? Anyone wishing to speak against the item? No, I now call for those who are opposed to the motion. Anyone opposed to that motion? That motion is carried. Okay, now we'll move to item 8, and as the next report deals with the confidential component, I would recommend that we split this resolution into 2 parts. Part A deals with the resolution points 1 to 6, and Part B will deal with the resolution points 7 to 9. So I'd like to move that this item be separated into 2 parts, with Part B, resolution 7 to 9, to be held behind doors as part of the confidential reports for the meeting, and I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shoemaker. Does anyone oppose that? That is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we'll move to Part A, and we'll go to Jared to do his presentation. So I should say the Manager of Finance, beg your pardon.
Thank you. Through the chair, second presentation in one night for the July 2025 Council financial report. We are just starting the financial year, so a quick look at the graphs. You'll see July represented as a dot on these graphs because we only have 1 month's worth of data so far. So operating income, we are right on budget, and operating expenditure just below. Looking at the graphs for capital as well, we haven't received any capital or non-operating income as of yet. Capital expenditure is slightly below budget, but up where it should be. Looking at the interest trends, interest saved through the loan offset, $11,646 for the month of July, with term deposit interest attracting rates of around 4.3%. For our rates receivable, we are slightly ahead of last year. July 24 was 2.9% collected. July 25, 10.4% collected. That is due to us striking rates slightly earlier this year. And a quick look at the rates collections. So properties greater than 10,000, we are slightly above last year, and 3 to 10,000 slightly above last year. We would expect to see that at this time of year. We do have budget variations in the July financial report that I'll take as read in the report. And we do have one tender for the July financial report, and I'd like to add that the city's procurement team observed the tender evaluation process and is satisfied that the probity and procedural aspects relating to the evaluation were compliant. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I ask for a mover of the report and a seconder? Do we have a mover? Councillor Jackson and Councillor Rogers. Thank you. Councillor Jackson. And just reminding everyone that we are dealing with Part A of the reports, which is the resolution points 1 to 6. So over to you, Councillor Jackson.
It was a pleasure to have a second presentation tonight, a bit of a treat we don't get very often, and I appreciate it, every moment of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Here. What a treat indeed, and so seconded the report. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone with questions or wishing to... Questions? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. I have some concern over the increase in operating expenditure for the Western Foreshore commercial site, that $200,000 figure. One concern is that that could potentially blow out even more. Could I get a sense of how that was estimated? And secondly, from memory, and I may well be wrong, there was already $500,000 or thereabouts set aside for this. Could you please add some information there? And then if there was, can the city re-look at that expenditure and see if there are some funds available within that?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the CEO.
I'll answer the latter part of the question, and then the Director of Built and Natural Environment will respond to how the amount was estimated. In relation to this type of expenditure for the Western Foreshore, this was not budgeted. The budget and that was adopted in the 25-26 related to other items of expenditure, and certainly wasn't related to the demolition because the lessee was required to return the site, and unfortunately we will have to take legal action for that to be recovered.
So I understand that you may not be able to answer this through the chair. From your experience or from the city staff experience, what is the likelihood of recovering all or part of that additional expenditure?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Through to the CEO.
Through the chair, there was an obligation, a lease agreement that they entered into, so we will be using that as the basis of ensuring that we commence legal action.
Thank you.
I can ask a subsequent question. Is the city aware of any knowledge about the ability of that entity to meet those obligations once the city pursues that legally? For example, is there anything on the public record that says that they're insolvent or otherwise not able to proactively be pursued to recover those funds?
Thank you, Councillor Burns.
Through the chair, we will take that on notice. I don't think it's appropriate to respond in this forum.
Are there any other questions in relation to the report? No. If that's the case, we'll move to Councillor Pond. Beg your pardon.
Are there any other options other than cleaning up the site at this point in time?
Thank you, Councillor Pond. We'll go to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, we could potentially leave the site fenced, but the risk of people accessing the site and the risk, I guess, that presents around the structures being basically condemned by a structural engineer and unsafe, together with, I guess, the other issues and potential risks on the site would certainly mean that would be not my recommendation, and certainly the recommendation would be to undertake the essential work that is necessary to remove the structures that obviously pose a risk and obviously need to be addressed, unfortunately, now by the city.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Councillor Kearns.
Through the chair, once again to the Western Foreshore commercial site, I was under the understanding that community members wanted to help with that clean-up, and obviously with the hazardous materials and all that, I understand what we're doing, but is there an opportunity for them to be able to help out at some point with that site to clean, you know, like with general rubbish collection and clean up once we've got rid of everything that needs to be collected?
Thank you, Councillor Kearns. Through to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, and thank you for the question. In my opinion, that would be extremely limited, given the nature of the structures and the type of demolition work. Obviously, firstly, I think this has been covered before, but we do require a licensed contractor to undertake that work. Certainly, firsthand, the inspection that I've undertaken of the site would make that extremely problematic and also present, in my view, a risk to those that were entering the site and trying to remove the types of material that may be left. It's far a better option from my perspective to get obviously a licensed and competent contractor in to undertake that work and eliminate that risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. Did the city staff consider any, rather than ask for additional budget measures, did the city look at transferring funds from any other discretionary budgeted items for something that clearly is needed now, unfortunately?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the CEO.
Through you, Mayor, in the council report, we've identified that the funding of this will have to be through an increase in the operating deficit for the end of the year, or a review at the mid-year budget review. So there is no discretionary funds once council adopts a budget or items are allocated.
Thank you, CEO. Further questions, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a quick one, and I may well have missed it. The new capital expenditure of $125,000 for public major public artworks. What project is that, or is there a project?
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Through to the Director of Place and Community.
Thank you for the question. Through the Mayor, there's two mural projects that will be using those funds. One is the Henson Street toilet block and the other is Chasm. They're forming part of the Arts Festival coming up next month. And the third public artwork is the message stick that was previously removed from the Eastern Foreshore and is being put back with a new plinth and lighting.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, I'm going to go to the mover, Councillor Jackson.
I like that stick. Thank you for the questions. and I was somewhat flippant earlier. I really do appreciate your presentations. That gives us good context. So thank you. Thank you very much for doing that. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Is there anyone wishing to vote against the item? Councillor Burns is voting against, and Councillor Zolani. That is carried. Okay, thank you. We will now move to item 9, which is the draft Mandurah Southern Beaches Coastal Hazard Risk Management Adaptation Plan, endorsement for community consultation. Okay, so I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder for this item. Councillor Rogers and Councillor Pond. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. Consistent with other items that we've considered today, the resolution is quite straightforward. It's moving to the next stage in relation to the Southern Beaches char map, and that is to seek public comment and public feedback in relation to the document that's been prepared to date. And I think community consultation is a valuable function of the local government, and I think we should be doing it for as many of our public documents as we can to seek community feedback in relation to those documents. So supportive of community consultation, yay community consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Pond.
Yeah, the char maps are an important piece of work for a coastal city like Mandurah is on at least 3 sides, 2 sides, however that works out. And the earlier stages of the char map for the Southern Beaches have been well attended in their community consultation to date. I'm sure there's many people out there that are looking forward to seeing this next stage and where things might go. And so I'm happy to endorse it for going out for public comment.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Do we have any questions? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. The version of the document going out, I understand there's going to be some not immaterial in a sense, it's not going to change the foundation of the document necessarily, but is there amendments that are being made to give the community assurance that some of the options aren't, or distinguish between options and recommendations, particularly when it comes to acquisition? So it's not, and currently it's not the policy of council to acquire land. It's just, I guess, for a thorough document. I noted that they were there as options, but I just need some assurance that that's all they are really, and will the public be communicated with about that issue?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. To the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, yes, City officers will be working with the consultant to ensure that the necessary clarifications are provided in the draft document ahead of circulation to the community for the engagement process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Anyone wishing to speak against the item? Councillor Cumberworth.
I wasn't on the steering committee, but the small exposure I've had to this Southern Chermat process, I'm not confident that we have achieved the appropriate or that the consultation has been appropriately depicted in the document. It was reflected that multiple community members had recommended artificial reefs as a method for preventing erosion. It was stated that there was no evidence that artificial reefs could prevent erosion. A quick Google search will indicate that artificial reefs definitely can prevent erosion. I challenge the language, and while it may be inconsequential, the language used is responses such as managed retreat, structural protection, example, seawalls or groins. The language being used is not reflective of the nuances of what I understand to be the attitudes and recommendations of what is supposed to be an expert panel of local people from the community. For these reasons, I feel that this churn map is just another cookie cutter off-the-shelf churn map with another name stamped on the front of it, and that all those deep and meaningful conversations from passionate local people with decades of experience has been smoothed over, and we've lost some vital information. So for that reason, I don't have confidence that moving forward, the further consultation is going to be properly listened to and created into a customised churn map. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. Anyone wanting to speak for the item?
Could I?
Question.
Question, yeah. Could I ask the CEO or the appropriate staff member to respond to those concerns of Councillor Cumberworth, and particularly directly with those concerns, but also speak to the process, so that if those gaps are identified through this process, what are the options before council going forward?
Thank you, Councillor Burns, to the Director of Built Natural Environment.
And through the Mayor, so certainly options around coastal protection, similarly to managed retreat options, have been outlined in the document and went through effectively a multi-criteria analysis to assess the reference groups, I suppose, preferences around some of those protections. But in terms of the stage that we're at, the document overall is a planning document in terms of setting, I guess, the key sort of risks and looking at and starting to look at the potential solutions, and certainly the community's, I suppose, preferences around those potential solutions. As with the Northern Beaches char map, the next stage is to undertake that further detailed investigation with most of the sites, and to start to, I guess, assess the feasibility in more detail of different options, and particularly around protection. Taking on board the elected members' comments, there is certainly some information that things like the artificial reefs don't offer protection for the coast, or significant protection for the coast when there's significant storm events, because those storm events effectively overtop those types of treatment measures. But that's not to say in particular situations and with further detailed studies that it might not emerge that some of those solutions may offer an option for the Mandurah coast. But that's really, in my view, subject to probably further detailed investigation of site by site, and probably premature at this stage. So hopefully that addresses that question.
Thank you. Further questions? So we've had a speaker against the item. Is there a speaker wishing to speak for the item? No. If that's the case, I'll go to the mover, Councillor Rogers, to close.
I think perhaps to capture some of the comments from the elected member who spoke against, encourage as many people as possible to engage in the consultation process, not only and to inform the detail of the plan, but to provide ideas for the next steps in terms of implementation and feasibility studies. Community consultation. I look forward to people putting in their thoughts in relation to the plan.
Okay, thank you. We'll put that to the vote. Those that oppose the item? Just Councillor Cumberworth. That is carried. Thank you. We'll move to item 10, which is the proposed council works in City Managed Reserve policy and guidelines. We have an amended officer recommendation before you on the screen. We'll call for a mover and a seconder of that item. We've got Councillor Cumberworth as the mover and Councillor Kearns as the seconder.
Can you go up? Hang on. If the minute officer can actually go up so the council can see the amendments in red. Just
Okay.
so if you zoom in now. So, yep, perfect. Thank you. And if we can move up number 6 to number 5, it's just that that's meant to be one point. Thank you.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with the amended officer recommendation that's before you on the screen? If that's the case, I've got a mover, which is Councillor Cumberworth, and Councillor Kearns is seconder. Councillor Cumberworth, would you like to speak to the item?
The City of Mandurah has been growing rapidly for a number of decades. The administration has requested additional technical officers to facilitate controlled control of these growth factors, including traffic management and works in city reserves through consultation with elected members. We have agreed to come back for a workshop before March 2026 to discuss some of the nuances around the crossovers at the front of residential properties. I encourage members to support the motion and look forward to the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. We'll go to Councillor Kearns.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, nothing further to add. Excited for the workshop also.
Thank you, Councillor Kearns. Are there any questions about the item? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. Before adding new FTEs, has the City considered reallocating staff or funding from discretionary or non-core areas to cover this work? Could these roles be trialled or phased using existing resources before committing to permanent increase in headcount?
Thank you, Councillor.
And would you like the third question?
Oh, okay.
No.
Thank you. We're going to go to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, certainly we've been unable to identify any savings in funds that would actually offset the costs of the FTE, but do note that basically it is a fee-for-service model. So effectively, the service would be provided through the revenue created from the permit system. Thank you.
Thank you. Further question, Councillor Burns? No further questions? Okay, are there any questions? Anyone wishing to speak against the item? Councillor Burns, you're speaking against it?
Thank you. I accept this policy fills a clear gap, and that managing works in reserves is a core responsibility of local government. My concern is not with the policy itself, it's the funding. We're being asked to create 2 new full-time roles, one permanent, without any evidence that the staff have explored reallocating sources, at least in the report, but thank you for your responses. We speak often about finding efficiencies, but here we default to growth. Before we add headcount and risk extra cost, and if I'm right, has been identified a risk of extra cost, I believe we should first look at diverting from non-core activities to cover these core services. Accordingly, I foreshadow a motion that Council defer consideration of the works in the City Managed Reserves policy until staff examine options to reallocate resources from discretionary areas to fund the proposed roles.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Burns has spoken against it. Is there anyone wishing to speak for the item? If that's the case, I'll move to Councillor Cumberworth to close. And just acknowledging that Councillor Burns has foreshadowed. Councillor Cumberworth, you wish to close?
No more comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. So I'm going to put that to the vote. Councillor Burns has foreshadowed his intentions. Is there anyone wishing to vote against the item? Councillor Burns and Councillor Zolani. The item is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move to item 11, which is, we almost need to all jump up and do a few star jumps because I'm feeling like the energy level has gone down a little bit. But the next item is the commercial jetty use, Streslety Holdings, Reserve 48415. The council recommendation is before you on the screen. Can I please ask for a mover and a seconder to the item? Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Kearns.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Shoemaker.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to move the motion. Hopefully this will go a long way towards fixing some of the disrespectful young children that seem to, well, actually I shouldn't say young children, adults, that jump from the boardwalk and cause unnecessary grief to patrons in the Palladio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Kearns.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is about providing an opportunity for commercial activation at the Jetty 4753 at the Mandurah Ocean Marina. We know how important tourism is to our city, and this is one way to give local operators more chance to trade while also contributing to the maintenance of our waterways and infrastructure. Last year, a trial was approved, but unfortunately, due to the vessel being sold, we did not collect enough data to make a long-term decision. That is why this new 5-month trial is sensible. It gives commercial operators a chance to test the market over the summer season while allowing the city to properly assess the benefits and challenges. It is also important to note that all maintenance of the jetty remains the responsibility of the licence holder, and the city will continue to receive a contribution fee. This ensures that commercial use is fair and that our public assets are protected. I think this is a really good thing for our city.
Thank you, Councillor Kearns. Anyone with a question or anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Jackson.
Just a question. If this becomes hugely popular, what's the process for vetting who can use this? I mean, we have an idea of what it might look like, but what if we've got, say, a sardine fisherman that wants to use it? So how do we manage this?
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I will go to the Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair, the city will run an EOI process in the future, and within that expression of interest process will include a number of parameters, including the size of the vessel and the types of offerings expected from the vessel as well. Very similar to other expression of interest processes that we run for other jetties across the city of Mandurah. However, on this occasion, we're not recommending an EOI. We're recommending to enter into a licence with 2 operators to trade from that particular location. Once we've obtained the data after the 5-month period, we'll then come back to council and pose a further recommendation, and it may be to provide commercial use for that jetty, that berth on that jetty on an ongoing basis, and then we'll carry out an EOI for future years.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Shoemaker.
Chair, I'd just like to say my apologies. I was speaking to a different report totally, but I still support this one.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Okay, so is there anyone wishing to, any further questions? Anyone wishing to speak against the item? No, if that's the case, I'm going to put it to the vote. Those opposed? There are none, so it is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move to item number 12, the Mandurah Bay North Local Structure Plan. And the recommendation is before you on the screen. Can I please call for a mover and a seconder of the item? Well, I will second it for you. So, Councillor Jackson, you are moving.
Where angels fear to tread. Okay, so we're not proposing with this to slap a big tavern in the middle of a existing residential area. My understanding of this is that there's already a somewhat potentially smaller amenity that effectively does the same thing already in the plan. What this does, and maybe I can get some clarity on this from one of the officers, is that it gives us the ability to manage some of the terms, conditions and implications of this sort of thing a little better. It gives us a few more tools. Is that correct?
Thank you. We'll go through
Just for a clarity question, are you talking about the operation, so between a tavern and potentially a wine bar? Or...
Sorry, I was contrasting what was the wine bar versus the tavern.
So the manager, strategic planning.
Thanks. Through the Mayor, essentially provides a bit more discretion to consider premises as slightly larger than what we define as a small bar, which is what's currently listed as a permitted use in the planning scheme for a centre of this size. Council did previously support this land use within this centre in the previous modification, but a technicality with the West Australian Planning Commission slightly changed that a little bit. Consistent with previous feedback on the structure plan when it was being prepared, is that the community wanted some degree of amenity and activity in this location, and a tavern together with the small retail offering that's proposed at the site was supported by the community at the time, and that's why we've supported this change. Well, the officers are supporting this change as part of this report.
Yeah, as
but there will. Sorry, I should probably say there's also still a development application process to be followed, which will get into the detail of design, scale, operation, management, conditions, liquor licence recommendations as part of next stages. So we actually don't have a proposal to consider all those matters at the moment. This is to change effectively an additional use to the zoning of the site to allow that to be considered into the future.
So I kind of feel like we had this discussion once before and we landed on this. So I don't think anything's changed, and so I'm very comfortable to proceed with that. I had another thought, but it's gone. It's getting late. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you. As a seconder, I'll speak to it. Look, I'm supportive of this. This was supported under our old scheme, and from first-hand experience, having attended community meetings in the north, there is very limited opportunities in the north for these that are currently there. There is a massively increasing population, and one of the things that I heard repeatedly while walking around in that area from many community members is that they would like to be able to go down to the ocean and to be able to have lunch out somewhere to take the family. So look, I'm really very supportive of this, and I also think the fact that it's in a new area, it makes it so much easier for us to have some quite strict controls in terms of the noise and the impact on others, and also people buying into the area will know it's there before purchasing. So I feel very comfortable with this. So that's me speaking as a seconder. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question?
I want to ask.
Yes, Councillor Zolani.
In my understanding, there is two taverns already. One is Mandurah Bay Tavern, one is Lakeland Tavern. So if we approve this one, so there will be another one in that area or no?
Thank you, Councillor Zolani. Shall I direct that to the Manager of Strategic Planning?
Thanks, through the Mayor. Well, there's the potential for one to be considered into the future if this proposal has progressed, yes.
So probably just a little bit more clarity, I think, might be helpful. There isn't a current proposal.
That's correct. Yes, through the Mayor, yes, that's correct. There's no current proposal. This report is about recommending a change to the zoning of the site to allow future consideration into the future should a proposal be made.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Zolani?
Is that mean current tavern, Mandurah Bay Tavern, it could be removed or something like that, or they will be stay there? Like that tavern is landowner, is they are the landowner, or Settle is the landowner of that tavern? So if we approve that thing, Settle will demolish that tavern and put another tavern, or no? That's my question.
So to the manager, I think you're talking about a different site, Councillor Zolani, but we'll just get clarity.
essentially a decision by an individual landowner whether they continue a commercial premises on their site under their current zoning is their decision. If it's permitted, it continues on, and if they decide to close into the future, well, that's a decision they would make. Equally, if the site's zoned commercial, there's decisions that a landowner would need to make depending on the commercial viability and other factors that are beyond the city's control.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I understand. I got that answer.
Thank you.
It depends on the competition. If there is a new tavern, maybe old tavern will go away because all these Mandurah Bay tavern is run down. So I think community was a better one. So in that case, I will support this one.
Thank you, Councillor Zolani. Are there any other questions or anyone speaking against the item? If that's the case, I'll put it to Councillor Jackson to close.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. That's what I was thinking. The commercial realities will dictate whether this potential is picked up or not. And it won't be picked up unless the community want it. Otherwise, why would you throw money away into a venture that's not going to work? So I think it's a bit of a win-win for the area. It's a new area. It's an amenity that a lot of people enjoy. And I think we should support it.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'll put that to the vote. Those that oppose? No one that's opposed. Your light's on, Councillor Zolani. Thank you. So there's no one against it, so that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we will now move to, actually, shall we have a 2-minute recess? Can I please call for a 2-minute recess? Can we suspend the live streaming for 2 minutes? So. So just confirming that the live streaming is occurring, and apologies for messing you up there. So we'll go to item 20, motions of which notice has been given. There is none. 21, a notice of motions for consideration at the following meeting. And does anyone want to give notice of a motion that they want to consider? No. Latent and urgent business, there is none. Next, we will deal with the confidential item. So the next item of business is a confidential matter. Well, there are a number of matters. As there are items of confidential business, can I ask for a mover and a seconder that the meeting proceed behind closed doors in accordance with section 5.232 of the Local Government Act 1995? Councillor Rogers and Councillor Benz. Is there anyone who opposes that? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. So on behalf of Council, I'd like to thank members of the public, press, officers and staff for attending and ask that they all now leave the chamber. has recommenced, so we need to recommence the live streaming. Yes, the live streaming has recommenced. So can I ask for a mover and a seconder that council endorse the recommendations made behind closed doors? Councillor Pond and Councillor Schumacher. Can I put that to the vote? No one opposed. That is carried. So can we please open the doors and close the meeting? Just thank everyone. That is the concludes the meeting. Thank you everyone for what has been a big night for many things tonight, and thank you for the way in which we've all done it very calmly and respectfully.
Good job.
I'll close the meeting at 9:06.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.